And we are live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What's up, guys? Nick Scripp on the P2W Fantasy podcast here in May. Looking forward, looking back. Got a great friend on the show today. Should be a good one for us today. So before we talk about anything fantasy football related, I want to make sure I introduce my guest, Jeramie, who's been on the show more than once. We've linked up, I think, twice now on the podcast, and you and I just saw each other like not even a week ago.
Yeah,
Had a
last
football
Saturday.
draft. Yep. We were pounding some drinks and having a good time. So, Jeramie, thanks for coming on the show. How are things, man?
Hey, man, appreciate you having me back on. I think this is number 3. It's number 3 on the podcast. So, things been good, man. Things been good. I'm living, trying not to let these allergies kill me out here. Other than that, though, man, I'm chilling, happy to be on with you.
Absolutely. I was just telling Jeramie before the podcast, I like forewarned him. I've been like fucking sick since Wednesday, and I was COVID negative. I have just had like sinus and mucus and can't sleep and like random stuff all day. So if I go from like Kermit the Frog to like Darth Vader to Squidward all in the show, that's why I'm just putting that out there. But Jeramie, we had that Dynasty League draft.
Yeah.
It's an IDP league, so we got offense and defense. How'd you feel that went? You feel like you got some of the guys you wanted at the end of the day?
I got some of the guys that I wanted. I was pretty happy with how everything worked out. The one Kyle Hamilton was the one that I was targeting heavy, and even though your brother tried to snipe him a couple times, I made sure I got him. So I was happy with it, man. What about you?
Pretty good. Made some draft day trades. I think you did as well, and just trying to fill out the team and got some of the targets. I think there were some surprises early on, but that's just how rookie drafts are. And I feel like a lot of them are very different. I think we try to like generalize like this guy is going to go at this pick and this and that, but they're pretty sporadic. And ours was definitely interesting. So
with the IDP aspect of it too, man, it's like you never know how early IDP people gonna go, and so it's just like one of them things. It's like, all right, like when people start coming off the board, it's like either you jump on it or you stick to the board and work with it that way.
Yeah, and it was, the number 1 pick in the draft, Kayvon Walker, like he dropped far below in the draft, and Aiden Hutchinson went in the first, and I think then you ended up with them, or no,
your brother ended up with them, and then I ended up with him in a trade, But.
Yeah, there we go. That just speaks for itself there. Well, as always, this podcast is partnered up with the Fantasy Points Media Group, fantasypoints.com, one-stop shop for all of your fantasy football needs. Rankings, articles, projections. They have media. They have everything in one spot. If you go to the website today, you get a discount if you use my promo code P2W22. So what Jeramie and I have going on today is it's May, so why not talk about last year, talk about next year. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the top 12 for each position and talk about who we feel like could fall out of that top 12 in 2022. And then who can be new to that top 12 in 20. I'm mixing up the years in 2022. So basically, who's in, who's out. Should be a good show. Stick with us here.
Play to win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win.
All right, let's get the screen shared. If we can figure it out. There we go. Super fancy, like very, very, technology based on this podcast here. But what we have in front of us is the top 12 quarterbacks. So we're looking at weeks 1 through 17 in 2021. And for the rest of the positions, it'll be PPR. This defaults to nothing. But here's our top 12 guys. And my first question will go to you first, Jeramie. Out of these top 12 quarterbacks, who do you feel is a quarterback that will fall out of the top 12 in 2022 for redraft, and why?
So I'm going to preface this by saying I had some boring takes, got some spicy takes. This is going to be probably the spiciest that I'm going to get I'm feeling. This is probably the spiciest that I'm going to get. Aaron Rodgers falls out the top 12 this year. I think that the loss of Devonta Adams is big. So when you take him away, what options does he have? Allen Lazard, Bob Tonyan. Tanyan's coming off the ACL injury. Who knows when he's going to be back? So with that, now what your pass catcher's looking at least the first quarter of the season, Allen Lazard is your wide receiver 1. Is that really going to work? Aaron Jones, like if you're running back your wide receiver 2, like how we really looking? Like we know that with rookie receivers, he hasn't been like usually that connection doesn't come year 1. So Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, how is that going to look? How quickly can they get? It's Aaron Rodgers. I could be completely wrong by this. He was QB, I think 7 last year. I think he's closer to the bottom half of the 12 than he is like top 5. And then when you get guys that, just missed out on the top 12 last year, I don't think it's out the realm of possibilities of Aaron Rodgers being, QB 13, 15, something like that, So
yeah, so
Aaron Rodgers out the 12.
I actually had Rodgers out of my original top 12 when I released like a graphic, and somebody said to me like, "Oh, well, you're a Bears fan, like you're just being a Packer hater." But I feel like there's a handful of factors, and you talked about some of them there. I honestly think the best receiver on this team right now is Aaron Jones, and that's probably not the greatest thing to help a quarterback's upside. Do I think he still will be a good quarterback and the Packers will be good next year? For sure. But I think some of the limitations his upside might be there when he's throwing to a questionable set of wide receivers. I mean, they drafted Christian Watson, who didn't have the deepest of resumes for his college profile. He's a great athlete. And then, Allen Lazard and him have a good connection, but do we really regard him as this big-time receiver that's going to help his fantasy stock? And, you mentioned, Tonyan, is he going to be back to 100%? What's that going to look like? Is he more just of a touchdown target? And Aaron Rodgers last season, 25% of his games, he threw for 300-plus passing yards, and there was a lot of guys higher than that. And I feel like that's the upside he brings is a high amount of passing yards and passing touchdowns. And he did have some good games with passing touchdowns, but the yardage was not bad by any means, but not as high as an upside as others. So I think it's a fair point in all honesty. And I don't think you're saying he's going to be quarterback 30 or anything like that.
Right. And it's one of those things too, right, that you have Rodgers. Like, I firmly believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be worse in the beginning of the season, like the first half of the season, than he is the second half of the season. Yeah. But that first half of the season will, my mind, right, is going to do enough where he's not going to be able to hit that top 12 threshold for the season. So.
All right. Well, I'm not going to even contest you too much because I had him just outside of my top 12, maybe like 14 around that mark. And I know a lot of people will argue against that, but there are some big question marks for him. My guy he's been pretty consistent the last couple of years. I mean, this past season, he was right at the edge as QB 11. In 2021, he was a QB 11 again the year prior, QB 13 in 2019. So Kirk Cousins always floats around that like 11, 12 range. So, it's kind of a scapegoat pick, but I feel like he is the guy that I'm going to go with. He's number 10 in passing attempts, number 9 in passing yards, number 9 in yards per attempt. But a lot of these stats, he's closer to 12 than he is to 1. And that's the difference for me. The accuracy rating and the deep ball accuracy was not phenomenal. I mean, he does have Justin Jefferson, who a lot of us regard as the best wide receiver in the league or the wide receiver 1 for fantasy or dynasty. 37.5% of his games played, he had 300-plus passing yards, and 31.25% of his games, he had 3-plus passing touchdowns. So he does have some upside, but I'm looking at this list of quarterbacks from this last season, and Lamar Jackson only played in 12 games. Russell Wilson only played in 13 games. Deshaun Watson didn't play last year, and seeing him have some statistics that are closer to 12 than 1, and then him kind of being in that range the last few seasons, I just feel like he's that guy that's going to fall out. And he's still going to be good, but I just don't know, like, for a super flex league, if I'm comfortable having Kirk Cousins as my 1. Like, I'm cool with him being my second quarterback, on that team, or my bench quarterback in a 1-quarterback league. But I don't feel comfortable saying, like, every week I'm rolling with Kirk Cousins as my go-to quarterback.
No, I'm with you. And Kirk Cousins was my other pick. It was either Rodgers or Cousins, and I decided to, like you nailed it on the head. Like you said, he was 11. Like, yes, he has the weapons, but it's Kirk Cousins. Like, it comes after a while that it's Kirk Cousins. So, like, he's going to give you good weeks. He's going to give you great weeks, but he's also going to give you weeks that when you need him, he might not be there for you. So,
and I want to make sure I shout out Martin Lorenzo Guerrero. If Nick doesn't shout me out, he's soft. So I'm not soft. Need to make sure the world knew that I wasn't. So I'm going to make sure I give him a shout out there. So Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, I think we're on the same page that they could fall out. I'm sure we wouldn't be shocked if they stay in, but they're guys that we can feel like could fall out. So the big question now for 2022, we're looking at this list, didn't make the top 12. Who for you can that didn't in 2021 in 2022?
So this was probably the hardest one to do, just because you have the quarterbacks. You can only have 12 quarterbacks be QB1. So, like you said, Lamar was QB 14, but he was 4 points away from QB 12. Deshaun Watson's coming back. Russ, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, I'm not going to take the easy ones. If he's the starter, and it's a big if, but if he's the starter, I think Trey Lance is QB1. Like, not overall QB1, but he is a QB1.
A QB1. All right. I thought you were getting super spicy and
saying no. He is a QB1, dual threat. They're going to utilize his athleticism. He's by far the most athletic quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has had. Like, I'm sure he's going to get creative with them. Shanahan's play calling. He's Jalen Hurts with a better arm, and Jalen Hurts was QB 8. Like, the weapons are there. I think the rushing ability will put him firmly in the QB1 mix week in, week out. As long as he's the starter for, I'll say, like 15 games. If he's the starter for 15 games, he's QB1. If he's not, then scratch this from the record book. I never said this at all.
He's like, just edit this podcast for a later time. No, I think that's fair. And we've seen last season with a guy like Jalen Hurts, who you brought up, he would struggle sometimes in the passing department, but he made up for it either coming back in games or with his legs. And that's the safest thing to have in fantasy football for the quarterback position, is a guy who rushes a ton. We saw it with Lamar Jackson in the past, Jalen Hurts this season. Even some of the young guys, even like a guy like Justin Fields, has that same sort of upside to his game to give him a safer floor. But Trey Lance, system around him, very good, obviously, with Debo, Ayuk, and you have George Kittle. Elijah Mitchell was a stud last season. I think the playbook is going to be drawn up for him. Looking at last season, I'm not saying that when he did have his small amount of starts that they didn't draw up the playbook for him, but the 49ers are a different offense with Jimmy G under center than they are with Trey Lance. So, I was a bit lower on Lance in general, and I feel like, he's still got room to continue to grow as a passer, but this guy can go off for over 100 rushing yards on any given day. And because of that ability, things can open up for him in the passing game. And I think that, if he's in a system like the Patriots, look at the Patriots wide receiver core. If he's in that system, then maybe I have bigger questions, because I'm like, you know what? His guys are Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers and, this guy and that Hunter Henry. But I'm looking at the system he's in, and it's almost like very safe because he's got all these cushions built around him. So I like that.
Yeah, he has a lot of outlets, and like I said, I feel like with Shanahan having, I think when they drafted him, this was always the year that he was going to come in, he was going to start. Like, I don't think he was ever going to start last year. This was the year he's going to come in and start. So you have a whole, everything that they, watched from him last year, a whole nother offseason to build this offense. And I mean, I think that it's going, I think that we're going to see some like creative stuff with that offense. Give him easy throws. He has the weapons. Like I said, all that works. He's mid QB1. So
for sure. Yep. My guy I'm going to go with QB 19 from last season. And we've seen it in the past before with him. QB 5 in 2020, QB 5 in 2019, QB 8 in 2018. But Russell Wilson in a new home, not a tough answer to give for him to bounce back after last season. But he played in 13 and he came back probably too early from that finger issue. Huge trade. I mean, the pieces that were involved in this Denver, Seattle trade, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, Noah Fant, Drew Lock. He had all these moving pieces in this, and he goes to a team that has a better offensive line. So PFF graded the Broncos as number 19 and the Seahawks as 25 for their O-lines. And he goes to a team that, if we look at Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, it's 2 wide receivers with a lot of promise, but you might say that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are better talents, but I still think that this system is developing, and it's a system that has some upside to it because you have a young stud in Javonte Williams in the backfield, those 2 receivers, and even like their third and fourth receivers, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, are very serviceable. And Michael Florio in an article mentioned that Seattle was focusing in on establishing the run, and they averaged 56 pass plays per game, which was the lowest in the NFL last season. So now he's going to a new system that liked to run the ball with both Javonte and Melvin, but I think that they're going to let Russ cook. And I know everybody throws that phrase out there, but I really do think that they are going to let Russ cook because I don't think he was going to go somewhere where he didn't have the ability to throw the ball more. Number 25 in pass attempts this past season for Seattle, number 7 in 2020, number 12 in 2019, number 20 in 2018. So he's been up and down in his abilities, not abilities, but I guess his what they let him do in the passing department. But I think with the Broncos, they're going to let him do his thing. And I think that's the reason he went there. So I'm going Russ is going to be back in the top 12. Probably around that 10 range, but that's the guy I see having a bounce back year.
Oh no, that's an easy call right there. I mean, he's like you said, like outside of last year, he's been QB 11 or better every year up until last year, and he didn't run the ball as much last year, but I feel like with this offense that's around him, probably run the ball a little bit more. He's obviously great throwing the ball. I'm with you. That's a great. I mean, that's one of those ones that's like, all right, that's an easy, right.
All right, let's shift over to the running back position now. So I'm going to make sure I switch. We're talking PPR here for running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends here on the screen. And if you are listening in your car later on, we have it on the screen. The top 12. Running backs, 1 through 12, Taylor, Eckler, Harris, Mixon, Fournette, Elliott, Patterson, Connor, Aaron Jones, Kamara, Chubb, and Gibson for the top 12. So, Jeramie, who from this list that I just read off do you feel like has the best chance to not be top 12 in 2022 and why?
Cornell Patterson. It's one of those things where he's in a worse offense this year than he was last year. And that's saying something because that offense was not good last year in Atlanta. So worse offense. And then if you believe what's been out there, They're saying that they may not utilize him as much as a running back this year and use him more as a wide receiver. Like that's going to take away from some of those like easy touch, like those touches and stuff that he had. You bring in Alliger from BYU, take away. They got, I believe, Damian Williams is there also. So it's one of those things that even if he is in the backfield, he's in a committee. Like I just feel like that's not inducive for him to repeat that top 12 performance. And like last year was his first fantasy relevant season of his career. Like, yes, we got it. Shout out because, back in the day, I was all on the Cornell Patterson bandwagon.
Sure. Yep.
But, I don't think that's really going to work. But I will say this. I hope they do it in the red zone so I can see it on NFL Red Zone. I like the thought of a Marcus Mariota, Cordero Patterson read option makes me feel things in my stomach. It makes me feel things. And it's my Madden dreams my Madden NCAA football dreams come true. Like I want that at least 10 times every game.
That would be pretty badass. Just like seeing those two and like last minute making the decision and just scoring touchdowns. But
exactly,
you got to be in that position though. That's going to be the big question.
Right.
Like, is the Falcons? They're going to struggle a bit this year. Are they going to be in that position? But that would be fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, Patterson was on fire this past season and had a lot of big games. But I feel like his usage and his efficiency kind of dropped off a bit second half of the season. Like he went through a spurt where he was like the man. He was touching the ball a ton, scoring like these 20-point fantasy weeks. And then as the season went on, some of those things changed. And, I kind of wonder, are they going to make him, line up in the slot more often? Is he going to, be peeling off wide and then somebody else is in the backfield? And I kind of struggle with this backfield because I don't think that, I know a lot of guys want Algier to be like the guy, especially if you drafted him in the rookie drafts. And I know some people that hung on to Patterson want him to be that same Patterson from last year. And then there's other people that say like, hey, Damian Williams, he wasn't good with the Bears, but he used to be a stud with the Chiefs. I think it's just going to be a crapshoot. I feel like there's going to be like 3-4 guys that are all getting touches in this backfield, and it's not a solidified guy getting 20 touches in a game. That's gonna impact Patterson, and it's a growing team. I also will throw a hot take out there that, I wonder if a guy like Chris Carson is healthy and gets cut and then gets picked up by the Falcons. Now that would hurt Algier and Patterson, but you never know what this team's going to end up doing from now until the start of the season.
Right, until the start of the season, right.
You can't bank on Pat. I still think he'll have some flex value in this next season, but to average like he did 15.5 fantasy points, I think it's asking a bit much.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there were, up until probably the last 4 or 5 games of the season, you could depend on Patterson week in, week out. And I definitely don't think that is going to be the case this year where you're going to put him in there and you're going to depend. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. My guy finished at the RB12 spot this season and last season, so 2 years in a row. Antonio Gibson, who a lot of people really like, and I'm not saying he's going to be a dud or anything like that. I mean, he was number 6 in rushing yards, number 8 in total touchdowns, number 11 in yards created in 2021. One thing that stands out to me is that they made sure they brought McKissick back. And McKissick in 11 games this past season had 43 receptions. Gibson in 16 had 42 receptions. So he played in more games and still had less receptions. The year prior, McKissick had 80 receptions and Gibson had 36. Ron Rivera also, talked about this dual role of Brian Robinson, who is the new running back in the system. He referenced D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. So 2 old school running backs that were like a 1-2 punch. And the fact that McKissick is back and he's going to eat up that receiving work for one. Now Rivera is talking about the guy that he just drafted playing a big part in this running game. That to me are two, things that stand out to me, saying that, what we wanted for Gibson to be this workhorse, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, it keeps getting further away from him. And, last season, his efficiency was not the best. Number 47 in true yards per carry, number 39 in yards per touch, number 33 in yards created per touch. So if he's not super efficient, and now you got two other guys eating into the work, I'm not saying completely fade him and that he's going to be a bust, but I do not see him finishing inside the top 12 for this coming season. What's your thoughts, though? If you disagree, you tell me, man. I'm serious. I want to hear your thoughts.
No, so with Antonio Gibson, everything that you bring up is like troublesome for the thoughts of him finishing as an RB1.
Yeah.
The Robinson thing, the McKissick thing, and I think at least last year, right? Yeah, he had McKissick there, but he was getting the majority of the early down work. Now, if he's splitting that early down work, that takes him further away from getting 200-something touches, 1,200 scrimmage yards, right? So I think overall, I think, for him being at 12, I'm not going to lie to you, I was kind of surprised when I saw that, but he did do work the back half of the season, but I feel like if people are drafting Gibson as an RB1, probably better served to have him as look at him like, all right, like he's going to be my RB2 week in, week out, who can give you potential RB1, value. But who knows? Maybe they change up how they, maybe we see a lot of double running back sets with Gibson, Robinson, Gibson, McKissick more than we did previous years. And, maybe that gives us something to look at, but I'm with you that I feel like he's coming out of that.
Yeah, and I think you also brought up a good point that, you probably don't want him as your running back one, but let's say your running back one is Jonathan Taylor or Najee Harris, and then Gibson's your two. Maybe you're okay with that. And I feel like at one point in Dynasty, people were okay with Gibson being their one, and then their two being, I don't know, Josh Jacobs or something like that. But now it's a bit different. So let's look at the positive side of things. So who is somebody that you feel who didn't finish within the top 12 in 2021 can?
The running back who was number 15 last year, Mr. Javonte Williams. I wanted to stay away from guys who were hurt. So your Deandre Swifts, I think that he's going to jump to the top 12. Kamara, but they were hurt. So I generally for this, I try to stay away from the guys who were
makes sense.
Right. So Javonte, you got Russ in the fold as QB. He was RB15 last year with Melvin there. Melvin's back. You got a new coaching. You got a new coaching regime there. Melvin's not going to go away, but I do believe that last year we saw close to a 50-50 split. I think this year we probably get more 60-40 Javonte's way, and just it going 60-40. That jump from 15 up into the top 12, I think, is a extremely reasonable expectation from him. He can be the workhorse that they need him to be. If he has the hot hand, they can feed him the ball. He can catch the ball. There's a lot there. Better offense this year, like I said, just with Russ there. This is probably as sure of a thing that I think will happen is Javonte in the top 12.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people have kind of faded that idea because they look and they say, oh, it's another year with Melvin Gordon, and they had a split workload, and now the ceiling is so much more limited. And a piece of that I kind of agree to, that Melvin Gordon isn't going to evaporate, but I'm with you on the sense, in the sense that I think there's a good chance that they actually split completely even on rushing attempts. I think it was 203 each, which is crazy. They both had exactly 203.
Right.
I think that changes. I could see a 60-40 split. And the one other thing that Javonte Williams had in his favor was there was a clear separation between him and Melvin Gordon for who was utilized in the passing game. And it was Javonte Williams. So that's a good separation, especially seeing that there's a better quarterback in town now. So I think a lot of people have kind of not faded him for redraft, but they're not as high. I feel like if Melvin Gordon did not come back, people would be talking about Javonte as like a top 3 back for redraft.
Right.
But we saw, I mean, even in the games this year, I mean, we saw a lot of promising things. Broken tackles. He led all running backs in broken tackles. Broken tackles per rushing attempt. He led all running backs in that with 15.27%, which is crazy. Looking at Jonathan Taylor, for example. Jonathan Taylor had 7.53% of his rushing attempts be a broken tackle, and Javonte doubled that. And it was a smaller sample size, but still. Also, 30-plus yard rushing plays. Javonte was tied for third in that category with 4, and he tied Damian Harris and Nick Chubb, who played a lot more snaps, I feel like, or had more opportunity, at least. So I'm with you with Javonte. I feel like he's probably going to be close to that, like, 10, 11, 12 range, but I think it's in the realm of possibility because I think it's going to shift from, like, 50-50 to a 60-40, like you said.
Right. And I think that as long as he's on the positive end on a 60-40, Russell Wilson being there is only going to help him. Like, my man was number 15 last year with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater playing quarterback. Like, I understand, okay, they may want to throw out there, check down Teddy, but like, Russ being there only helps Javonte Williams in the long run. And for this season, and I just think that with him being there, that's a given.
So for my guy, I have to go just chalk and just go with the guy I talk about too much all the time because I have to stay true to my brand. But I'll go on my quick Deandre Swift rant really quick here. RB16 in 12 games played, he averaged 16.2. He was tied in average targets per game in 2021. He was number 4 in both targets and receptions, number 5 in receiving yards, number 2 in target share. So the receiving upside for Deandre Swift, which we know is a big booster for running backs in fantasy football, was completely there. He makes plays happen and he makes them longer. So he was number 5 in yards created, and he was also number 1 in yards created per touch. He was also, a lot of alsos here, number 9 for all players in yards after catch. So that included wide receivers, which is crazy to me that he was top 10 in yards after the catch. 2 really big rushing days of 130-plus rushing yards, number 14 in carries of 15-plus yards, even though he missed some time. People thought he was going to be in a committee with Jamal Williams. He wasn't. He was number 8 in snap share, so he wasn't, splitting carries as much as people thought he was going to be. Before his injury, he was the RB7 in points per game. The O-line is solid. They keep continuing to add to their pass catching, which I think actually helps DeAndre Swift, because if this team, has less of a focus on him as a running back and we have more pass catchers in Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, that actually might get them in more scoring positions too and give him some red zone opportunities. So checking a lot of the boxes with the O-line, the pass catching, the running ability, the offense is getting better. I'm all in. And the one knock that people always have for him is that, he's always injured, or he was injured again last year. Like the play he got injured on last season, watched it live on Thanksgiving. Roquan Smith, my favorite linebacker in all football, I mean, he's a Bear, took DeAndre Swift and literally pile drived him out of bounds on his shoulder. Like, I don't care if it was Derrick Henry. Like, he's going to probably get hurt on that play too. So that's kind of garbage to me. But yeah, DeAndre Swift's my guy there.
Oh, that's DeAndre Swift is like, there's a few guys on this list, right, that like for me that I have falling out. So, and DeAndre Swift, like, again, I didn't want to go on the injury side because if he was healthy, he was going to be in the top 12. Like you said, like all of these things, the rushing work, because I thought I drafted Jamal Williams in a couple of redraft leagues last year, because I'm like, oh, they gonna split work. I was sadly mistaken early on in that season. sadly mistaken. So, yeah, like everything that you said is just like the man's going to be good. So
should be fun stuff to watch. And it's interesting for the running back position because we have a lot of guys that fell out of this top 12 because of injuries. So, I mean, we scroll down. Derrick Henry, RB17, could he be top 12? Absolutely. As Christian McCaffrey's back and healthy, could he be top 12? Absolutely. I think hot take. I think Saquon can bounce back. Could he be a top 12 guy?
Absolutely.
He could be.
Absolutely.
So this should be a lot of fun. So that for one tells me that it's a bit hard to predict because now we're factoring in all these guys that were injured. And also, like, we're looking at this list of guys that did finish in the top 12, and there's a chance they can slide down because they were in that top 12 only because of injuries. So it should be interesting. But we'll go to the deepest position in fantasy now, the wide receiver position. This is wild because people come out with rankings every single year, and they're always like way off. I mean, including myself. I was like way off on a lot of these wide receivers, especially this Cooper Kupp guy at the top of the list who was absolutely phenomenal, and I whiffed on that one. But looking at this list, top 12, I'll read it off because I forgot that people are not all going to be seeing the screen here. But Cooper Kupp, Devonta Adams, Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Hunter Renfrow, and Mike Evans for weeks 1 through 17, which is the fantasy season PPR. So, Jeramie, from this list, who's fallen out in 2022?
So before I give that, I just want to shout out Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp personally won me 2 fantasy championships last year. So Thank you, Cooper. If you watch this, I appreciate you. I am loyal and I'm grateful. If I get a dog, I'm probably going to name him Cooper or Kupp. Might call him Cooper Kupp. I don't know. But anyway,
there we go.
Hunter Renfrow. My man Hunter Renfrow. Wide receiver 11 last year. Devonta Adams comes in. You got a healthy Darren Waller coming back. So I feel like Renfro's wide receiver 3. Like he's the third pass catcher on that team, I guess I'll say. Not necessarily wide receiver 3, but he's the third pass catcher on that team, third in the pecking order. With that being the case, I don't care how good the quarterback is. I don't care how potent the offense is. There is no number 3 pass catcher on a team that is finishing in the top 12. There's not enough ball to go around unless you just don't run the ball, unless you just pass the ball all the time. Like I don't see barring an injury, a significant injury where Devontae or Waller misses significant time. I just don't see a path for Hunter Renfrow getting into the top 12. Feel like don't get me wrong. I think Hunter Renfrow probably will be somewhere in that low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 range. I think he might be a little bit better off than Tyler Boyd was last year for Cincy, but I just like I said, as a wide receiver, as the third option, not even including Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, or whatever. Yeah, so it'll be Hunter for me.
That was my guy as well, so I completely agree. I mean, looking at Darren Waller, the previous year, he had 145 targets in 2020. So the importance of Darren Waller in this offense and the connection with Derek Carr, that's important. But even further, Devonta Adams comes in. He probably kicks Darren Waller to the side as the number 2 now because Devonta Adams, for one, has a connection with Derek Carr because they played college ball together. And then for 2, he's coming off a 169 target season. And the year prior, he had 149 targets. So, I mean, this is a guy that commands the highest, ceiling of targets, Devonta Adams. I still think to this day, he is the most talented wide receiver, personally, for me, in the NFL still. Until the wheels fall off, I think he's the man. And maybe he's top 3 for other people, but we're talking Devonta Adams, we're talking Darren Waller. And Hunter Renfrow, he was awesome last season. He averaged 15.1 points per game. He had 128 targets. He was mainly in the slot, number 8 in receptions. Him and Derek Carr had a great connection. He was number 1 in target accuracy. But Waller only played in 11 games. And then Ruggs got arrested. He only played in 7 games. Zay Jones was like the next man up, and I actually like Zay Jones, but that's the next man up. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know. So great season for Renfro, and I'm with you that I still think he'll have some fantasy value, but now we're going from he's my wide receiver 2 on my fantasy roster to he's my flex on certain weeks now. I think that's kind of like the shift we're going to see in Hunter Renfrow.
Right. I think that if anybody plays in a league where they give extra points for first downs, grab Hunter Renfrow, because I think that man's probably going to have like 70 catches and 65 of them are going to be first downs. Like that man's about to be a first down machine. Got Josh McDaniels coming in, a la Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. He's going to be a first down machine. But, from season long, nah.
Yeah. And a great route runner. And his target separation was one of the best in the NFL this past season. So Hunter Renfrow, we're both saying is out. I'll also just throw out there that Chris Godwin is going to be an obvious one too, because he might not be back for a while because he's coming back from that ACL tear, and that usually takes about 9 months for guys in the NFL. So he's going to miss some time. So he'll be out of that mix as well. The rest of the guys, I feel like that finish in there have a good chance of finishing again, but probably in a different order here. But who's off this list of the top 12 that you feel like can enter that top 12 in 2022 now? And this is a tough question because that means you got to push other guys out. And again, like I said before, deepest position in fantasy. So what are we thinking?
Okay, so I have so in my mind, right? So going off of this stuff, right? I had 3 guys, possibly a 4th that was gonna fall off this list. I'm going to say, because this is the one that's probably the easiest, I think has the clearest path to happen, and I'm gonna say CeeDee Lamb. With CeeDee Lamb, he's the clear number 1 guy now, clear cut. Amari Cooper's gone. So really you got Cedric Wilson's gone. Like Dak did love Cedric Wilson. He's gone now. Michael Gallup, they're saying he may come back. He'll be ready for week 1, but I think it'll take him a little bit of time to get back acclimated and stuff like that. You got Dalton Schultz. You got Dalton Schultz there, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if CeeDee Lamb led the NFL in targets this year.
And that might be a demand of his because, like you said, Gallup might not be ready right away. It's a lot of R's there. And then Amari Cooper is going to be a Cleveland Brown. So looking at CeeDee Lamb, I feel like the opportunity is very high. I still think most of us regard Dak Prescott as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. In CeeDee Lamb, we've seen have plenty of big games. We just want to see it be more consistent now. And I feel like a more consistent target share is going to elevate that. And, for Dynasty, I've seen him go, get ranked as the wide receiver 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. So to say, your take is that he's going to finish top 12 when a lot of people for Dynasty purposes have CeeDee Lamb as a top 5 guy, it only makes sense that this is the time to do it because he's going to be targeted, hyper targeted, maybe somewhere between 8 to 10 times a game until he has some more pieces coming in. And I like Dalton Schultz, and they brought in Tolbert, who's going to be a guy that I feel like is going to get some work, and James Washington. What's his role going to be? And Zeke gets his passing work, but CeeDee Lamb is going to have some of the highest demands for the Cowboys and for any wide receiver, just because the supporting cast right now is kind of up for grabs. So I do like that call.
I feel like CeeDee Lamb is going to be a la Michael Thomas, I think it was 3 years ago, like when he just had all the targets, all the catches. Like, I don't think the gap between 1 and 2 will be that high. But I do feel like CeeDee Lamb is just going to be he's going to get looked at early and often with them.
And my guy that I'll shift to now is going to be T. Higgins, who I feel like a lot of people will say, like, how is two guys from the same team going to be in the top 12? But I mean, this past season, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, we've seen like DK and Lockett in the past, and we can just historically go back and look at guys that have been top 12 guys on the same team. And I feel like this offense and Joe Burrow can support two top 12 guys. And I know I'm pretty sure T. Higgins is a guy you like, Jeramie, but wide receiver 20 in 14 games this past season. But we look at some of the bigger things to look at. Number 10 in yards per route run, number 8 in yards per target, number 15 in receiving yards. So T. Higgins is a guy that, we see these guys in the NFL that get like 8 targets in a game, 6 catches for, like 65 yards. T. Higgins is a guy that goes like 5 catches for like 115 yards. He's a big receiving yard guy that capitalizes on receiving yards. But he had more targets, receptions, receiving yards, and equal touchdowns to his rookie year and his sophomore year. And he played in 2 less games for 1. And also he had to exist with Ja'Marr Chase. So that says a lot to me. And then there was weeks where he went completely off. Weeks 12 through 16, he was the wide receiver 2 overall during that span, and he averaged 23.3 fantasy points. Look at the Super Bowl. He led the team in receiving yards. He had 4 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So T. Higgins can have that sort of performance in the Super Bowl any given Sunday as the number 2 on his team. So I'm going to say T. Higgins can finish inside the top 12, probably more 11 or 12 for me, but I think that's in his range of possibilities.
T. Higgins, so this is the thing, right? So I think that's a great shout by you, because I think that Ja'Marr Chase, you knew the connection with Chase and Burrow in college. Nobody thought that it would be that dynamic, so early on. So that being said, you got 2 people on the team that needs to be double teamed. And I think that most defenses are probably going to try to double team Ja'Marr Chase because of the type of, the big play threat that he is, which leaves T. Higgins one-on-one. And I don't know many teams with 2 corners I don't know many teams whose corner 2 can really contain T. Higgins like that. Like T. Higgins is a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams, and he's a dog, man. He's a dog. So that offense, Joe Burrow is going to get better. That offense is going to get better. They may have more opportunities to pass the ball this year than they did last year. Like, they did pass the ball a lot, but just looking from a team perspective, with everybody coming back, got the Deshaun Watson addition, you got the Lamar Jackson being healthy, like, they may need to throw the ball a little bit more to win some of these games if they want to repeat as division champs.
Yeah.
So opportunity presents itself, and I like it.
And, this is a growing offense with 3 really young guys, so they're just going to continue to bond and grow together in the NFL. So I'm with it. And I think Ja'Marr Chase, some people say he takes away from T. Higgins. I think he actually helps T. Higgins' fantasy stock because, like you said, he's drawing the best coverage. And now we got a guy that's going to get some open looks because of Ja'Marr Chase being Ja'Marr Chase. Let's shift over to the tight end position, and we got about a little less than 10 or around 10 minutes left, so we'll run through this pretty quick. Give me just real quick, give me your guy that falls out, and then jump into who you think will finish within the top 12 for the tight end position with some more details. So you can just kind of briefly say who falls out, and then give me a little bit more details about who you think will actually be a top 12 tight end in 2022. And I'll read this list off really quick. From 2021, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Dalton Schultz, Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, and Dawson Knox. That's 10. Hunter Henry and Rob Gronkowski.
All right, so not going to account for Gronk's potential retirement. I'm going to say Mike Gesicki. It's just a quick thing. I think the addition of Tyreek Hill takes targets away from him, and therefore that's the main reason why I feel like he falls out of the top 12, and they will also want to run the ball a lot. Going in, I am not a Bears fan. Nick knows this. I'm a Chargers fan. Shout out Justin Herbert. Bold up. Cole Kmet into the top 12. I think that there is nobody for Justin Fields to throw the ball to outside of Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. And Cole Kmet, and this is the main also reason why I feel Cole Kmet was tight end, I believe, 21 last year. 60 catches, 612 yards, but no touchdowns. If Cole Kmet has 4 touchdowns last year, he is now tight end 14. I believe more catches, more yards, even if he gets 4 touchdowns. That's a tight end 1 season. And, so I think that, that along with, like I said, Justin Fields has nobody to throw the ball to outside of him and Mooney. Like, ball got to go to somebody. And so I think we see a step from Justin Fields. And with that being said, we get Cole Kmet, tight end 1. Book it.
Boom, because that's my pick too. Twice now on this podcast, we are on the same page about somebody. So the guy I was a bit concerned about was just Noah Fant, just because of the quarterback situation. And then, DK and Lockett above him. I think he's still one of the best talented tight ends in the NFL, but I'm just a bit concerned because I think it's Geno Smith, but we'll see how that goes. But Cole Kmet was my guy as well. And this past season, number 8 in targets, number 11 in target share, number 6 in snap share, number 9 in air yards, number 6 in deep targets, number 12 in receptions, number 12 in receiving yards. So this guy was already top 12 in a lot of different categories. And the missing piece was the touchdowns. And one thing that impressed me is that we saw a couple weeks, like weeks 9, 12, and 15, he had 87, 65, and 71 receiving yards. That was impressive to me because Cole Kmet, his rookie year, would get like 4 catches for like 30 yards or like 3 catches for 15 yards. He was not getting any yardage. And if you don't get touchdowns and you don't get yardage, you're not going to score well for fantasy. And I'm with you that, Justin Fields does not have much to throw to. If you look at that depth chart, the depth chart is terrible right now. Right now, in my opinion, it's Mooney and Cole Kmet, and then whoever else wants to step up and be that third option right now. And for me, targets are the most important thing for a tight end, in terms of what I look for a fantasy tight end. I don't want a guy that gets 2 catches and I hope he scores a touchdown. Or I don't want a guy that gets 10 catches one week and then 2 catches the next week. I want to have some sort of consistency, and I feel like Cole Kmet is going to have that consistency in this offense. So the touchdowns will come. Targets have to come first. Then the receiving yards have to come, and then the touchdowns come. In my opinion, I think that, touchdowns are the least of my worries. I think that the targets and the receiving yards are harder to come by than touchdowns. So I'm all in, and it sounds like a Bears bias, but it only makes sense to me.
Right. No, and it's one of those things, like you said, like targets, catches, yards, he's the number 2 option. And being the number 2 option, he's going to get, he's going to get, you think those numbers are going to go up. And if those numbers go up, a couple touchdowns fall his way, it's an easy thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably factor in Darren Waller to come back into this top 12. He finished at number 16. TJ Hawkinson, yep, at number 13. I think, that was going to be my pick, but it was too close. So I didn't want to be, that guy on there. And there's some other tight ends in new homes now. I mean, you mentioned your Chargers, Gerald Everett. He had a career year this past season. Now he's with Justin Herbert. Austin Hooper is now on the Titans. I mean, there's David Njoku might be the tight end 1 there. Evan Ingram is now on the Jaguars. There's been a lot of tight end.
Albert O being the head guy, being the tight end 1 in in there. So
here's a quick question, and then we'll close things up. But Jake Landry asks, how do you think O.J. Howard will change Dawson Knox's role in the Bills offense? And this is an interesting question because OJ didn't have like a huge role in Tampa. I mean, he was coming off of that Achilles tear, and I think he had one or two like really nice games, and the rest were kind of blanked. Dawson Knox, this past season, obviously had a really good one because he finished as the tight end 10. He averaged 11.1 fantasy points, had some good touchdown days. The thing is, for me, I'll just spit out my quick thoughts. His targets, I feel like, are a bit sporadic for what I'd like to see. I still think he's going to be one of the better tight ends because he's tied to Josh Allen. How the targets are going to work between Gabe Davis and Jameson Crowder as those second options. Is James Cook, the new rookie running back, is he going to get a bunch of targets out of the backfield? Like, how's that going to work? OJ, I think, is going to play a role, in terms of using his athleticism to do some blocking and be on the field for some plays that just open up for him. Like, I can see him having a day where he scores like a 30-yard touchdown, but he only had like one or two catches. So I don't think it takes tons away from him, but I feel like, it's more competition than what Dawson Knox had last season.
To keep it short, I think the only thing that O.J. Howard really takes away from Dawson Knox is the red zone. I think that they'll use a lot more two tight end sets in the red zone, which if they use two tight end sets in the red zone, potentially takes away some looks there. I don't think it takes away from him as a usable fantasy tight end.
Yeah.
But, it's something to definitely, I'll probably look at him closer to like mid to bottom tight end one that I'm like firmly mid tight end one mix.
Yeah. Just pay attention to the snap percentages, I guess, for Knox the first couple weeks. But I don't imagine it, kills his fantasy value. I used to love O.J. Howard, so I do hope that he bounces back. He's just like, he used to be stupid athletic, and he had some great days in Tampa, a handful of years back. But that wraps up the show here. Guys inside the top 12 in 2022 that weren't in 2021, and we kind of recapped who we thought was going to fall out of that top 12. So, Jeramie, thanks again for coming on. Third show, easy BSing with you, just like we're having a couple beers and talking fantasy. But where can people find you on social media?
Find me at Hey Mr. Holman on Twitter. That's probably where you'll get the most out of me. My Twitter is strictly chaotic. I enjoy chaos all the time. So if you follow me, I will give you sports content every once in a while, give you some real stuff most of the time. But really, I'm just here to have fun, make y'all laugh. So if you want to join the fun, follow me there. Nick, appreciate you for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking with you.
For sure. And I mean, recently you've been dropping some spicy videos about some takes of yours. So people got to go check this out because you're not playing with some of these takes, and you're telling people how it is.
Hey, y'all want the spicy food takes? I am willing to down it. If you want a martyr, I am the martyr. Yeah, ketchup's terrible. Don't eat it. All right.
There we go. Enough said. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and more stuff to come this week. I just don't know in what sort of order yet, but appreciate you guys tuning in, and have a good rest of your night.